Okay.
Would you like us to start? All right. Wow. So, yeah, this is exciting. I love these Saturday afternoon events. It's brilliant. I'd like to welcome everybody to our second in the series of our Zooviews. My name is Sarah Doucette. I am here with Anna, who's our producer today, and Amy, you'll be hearing from in a moment at the zoo. We are all directors of the Friends of Hyde Park Zoo, and I see we also have some other directors from the zoo, from Friends with us today. Wonderful to see them joining us. This is great. A little bit of housekeeping before I introduce anyone else. We will be turning off the cameras and we will be putting everyone on mute, unfortunately. Should you have questions, please just type them into the chat box and we will get to as many as we can at the end of the presentation. All right, I see and hear that Amy has the geese. Pre-warning, geese can be very loud. But on that happy note, I'm going to hand over to Amy, who is at the zoo on location. We have special permission to be in the zoo today because unfortunately it is closed. So Amy, I'm going to hand to you and you can introduce whoever you have there. Amy?
All right. Yes, there was just a little service blip there. Hi, I'm Amy. I'm here at the zoo, like Sarah said, with special permission. Unfortunately, the zoo is still closed, but I have permission to come down and introduce everyone to our lovely llamas. So I don't know them best, so I'm turning it over to our wonderful zookeepers, and I'm here in the llama pen. So let's meet our girls.
Amy, sorry to interrupt. Can you try turning your phone? You seem to be on your side. That's it. Okay, we'll go with that.
All right.
Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and I'm here at Hyde Park Zoo. And llama came from the Andes in South America, and they've been domesticated for thousands of years. And the Incas called them their silent brother because they were so important to them. Now this one here, this is Stardust. She's one of our youngest. Did you just see that? That actually wasn't really a kiss, even though it looks like it. One of the ways they communicate is they like to check out your breath. She just came to me and wanted to check my breath, and that's a polite greeting for them. This is Luna, Stardust's mother, and she loves her rump scratches. Dogs have her sweet spot. She likes this. They all have their own. Honey was the face of the zoo when the zoo was going to be shut down a few years ago, and the Honey Foundation matched all donations of the public, and they kept us alive, and we're still here because of the public, and Honey's kind of the figurehead of that. And this is Christy and Jet. This is Honey's sister. Jet was born during the air show, and the fighter jets were screaming overhead, and boom, there's this baby. So she earned that name, Jet. Their mom, Chiquita, is out there. We have the 4 generations here right now. Now this, this one, she's covered in straw and shavings. When we clean the pen, she likes to sneak in, and the first thing she does with a nice new pen is roll all over it, get herself in and undo all of our good work. We have another young one, Jazz, and her mom, Tango. Jazz is a very clever one. They are clever animals. Jazz will often have something in her mouth if you're using a brush to clean water, or a lock, or a lid of a container. She'll have it in her mouth. And we have Lima back there. She has figured out how to open gates. She's the only one that's done that. So yeah, that's some of them. Let's talk about spitting for a minute. Everyone's like, oh, I don't want to go near the llamas, you're going to spit. I've never been spit at, and I've been here for years. So it happens if they're really angry or really scared. And sometimes with each other for dominance, you know, if they're having a little tiff, they might spit at each other a little. But it's not a thing they do all the time, but it is one of their kind of defense mechanisms.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much. That's so great to hear. And our llamas are waiting to hear the rest of our chat. So I will send it back to you, Sarah, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy. So that is brilliant. It's a lovely day at the zoo, and it's amazing to be here with everyone. So I'd like to introduce, please, Taylor Chastain Griffin is the National Director of Animal Assisted Intervention Advancement for Pet Partners. Taylor focuses on supporting research and professional development within the therapy animal arena, having witnessed hundreds of interactions between her own therapy animals and the people with whom they've visited. Taylor obtained her doctorate in research psychology in 2018, with her studies focusing on the human-animal bond as it is experimenting in contents of sharing traumatic experiences. Taylor is also a dog trainer for Pet Partners and a team evaluator, and has been a registered handler with Pet Partners since 2015. Taylor is based in Georgia, so out of our area, and she lives with 6 dogs, 3 cats, and we can throw in a llama if you'd like. So Taylor, I'm going to hand over to you, and thank you so much for agreeing to join us today. Take it away. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. You all should know that I fought for the opportunity for this presentation. It came to our radar as a team, and I said, I'm doing this. I get to talk about see the llamas. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. It says that it has disabled screen sharing when I click it. So I don't know if, let's see, Amy might be able to help with that. There we go. Okay. Can you see it? If anyone wants to take off mute for, okay, good. Thank you for the thumbs up. Perfect. So I'm going to talk to you guys today a little bit about what we do, because at Pet Partners, we actually have llamas and alpacas within our therapy animal program. So I know you'll be excited to hear a little bit about what we do. We are always looking for more llamas and alpacas because it is one of the most requested species for therapy animal visits. So we'll dive into that here in just a moment. A little bit about myself, as you heard in the introduction. I am a self-proclaimed crazy dog lady. There's some members of my pack there in the bottom picture, and I really have been fueled to come into this work because of my love for animals, and because I think as a scientist, we're only just beginning to understand what animals can do for us as humans. So that is some of my motivation for coming here. You can see the border collie in that picture there with me is Rex. He is a retired therapy animal, but he spent years and years doing some of the most incredible work. And if I told you some of the stories, they sound almost too good to be true. You might not believe them, but he's just brilliant. And he's one of the great teachers in my life. I want to be more like Rex when I grow up. As mentioned, I work for Pet Partners. We're one of the largest therapy animal organizations in the world. We've been around for a very long time. We're actually founded over 40 years ago by a group of people. There were veterinarians and psychologists who also understood that the human-animal bond was very powerful and wanted to further explore that. Over the years, we've grown in a lot of different ways and now have a very large therapy animal program. So people volunteer with their pets. They take a education with us, and then they take an evaluation with their pet and are able to visit within their community to share love and make everybody feel better. We register 9 different species of therapy animals, which I'm going to talk about more in just a moment. But that's one of the things that makes us unique as a therapy animal organization, is that we do have this diversity in species, and it is very well loved. I have many dogs myself. I have a cat in training, but I can't tell you how many times I go out and people say, do you have a llama or a horse or a pig that you could bring? And I'm trying to convince my husband to let me get some more animals so that we can fill that that need. But we visit pretty much in any setting that animals can help make people feel better. So when a person takes their test with us to become a therapy animal handler, it's really up to them and up to their animal. We believe and know that animals have preferences when it comes to which environment they might visit with, and then they find those places in their community. We not only have our therapy animal program, though, we have a whole arm of our organization which is involved in advocacy. When issues related to pets or animals come up, then we get our crew together to show up in the way that we need to. We are highly involved in research. We fund empirical investigation every year so that we can say more than this is just a cute intervention. This is something that is scientific and empirically supported. We also have an arm that's emerging on professional development. So we are soon to launch a professional association so that people who are maybe a counselor or a physical therapist, a nurse, who want to bring therapy animals into their practice have a home for training, networking, things like that. So you hear me talk a lot about the human-animal bond, and I imagine if you're taking a Saturday to attend this presentation, then you know all about the human-animal bond. But we do like to throw out that definition for people when we are invited to present, that it's not only something that is beneficial to us as humans, but we strongly believe that this relationship that we share with animals can be beneficial to the animals as well. It's one of our core tenets at Pet Partners. We talk a lot about selecting the animals for their affiliative nature. We talk a lot about how to read animal body language and ask them to consent rather than tolerate interventions. I see in the beginning when we met some of our critters today, we would have candidates for therapy llamas there because of how much they wanted to be around people, and that's all that we're looking for. My title, every time people introduce me, it's a mouthful. AAI is the abbreviation for Animal Assisted Interventions. But just to briefly tell you what we mean when we say that, these are structured, goal-oriented times. So when a person has chosen a place to go visit within their community, maybe the senior living home, for example, then they set up a time to go. They sometimes will talk to staff. I can give an example. I have a poodle named Ivy who her favorite place in the world is the senior living community in our area. And we'll call beforehand and find out, maybe is there a resident who's had a rough week? Has there been a loss on the the floor where we visit? And so we make those plans ahead of time, and then we come in to try to meet the needs of the population. These are interventions that can be incorporated into health settings, into education settings. A lot coming out this past year on even research on people who are learning at home, because we're all kind of forced to homeschool, how even pets in that environment are helping, and for human services. So wherever we go, it's for therapeutic or educational gains and to improve health and wellness. I'm going to talk just a little bit more about that here in a moment. I also want to take this opportunity, though, to briefly distinguish between therapy animals and the other working animals. I would say this is probably the #1 question I get when I'm out with my animals, and my animals actually wear a vest that say, "Please pet me," because oftentimes many people see a vested animal and step back, which is great out of respect for our assistance animals, also known as service animals. But the main difference between a therapy animal and the other two kinds of working animals is that they have a one-to-many relationship. So when I'm out with my therapy animal, their job is to make other people feel better. They don't have a job to help me during that interaction. They also do not have special accessibility rights. We are very serious with our volunteers about not misrepresenting our therapy animals, just so that we can take them to places with us in public. They have special training. They have a lot of standards around keeping them clean, reducing any chance of infection spread by having an animal in a place like a hospital. And assistance animals or service animals and emotional support animals, on the contrary, are there for the person who's on the other end of their leash. So I often joke, if you met some of my therapy animals, they would make the worst service animals in the world, because they are so flirty, they're so silly. We get a lot of career change animals, actually, ones who are bred for service animal work, and then they're just too affiliated with other people, and then they become therapy animals. So I'm going to walk us through just a little bit about what we know these therapy animals can do. Everything that you're going to see in the next couple of slides comes from research, comes from academicians and researchers who have studied the intervention. And one of the places where therapy animals make the biggest difference is in medical settings. So we know that when we have our teams in hospitals and recovery centers, that they reduce fear for people, decrease anxiety. We see even measures such as pain perception. People who have a therapy animal have had instances of requiring less medication to feel better, faster recovery. It's very common for therapy animals to be called in when it's important that a person gets to walking again, for example, after a surgery, and therapy animals can really help inspire that movement. I won't go too far down a research nerd rabbit hole, but there is one study I want to talk about briefly, and that's that last section there on cancer care, because there's been some really great research on how therapy animals of all different species can help people who are fighting cancer. There was one study in particular that had a great design because they had 3 different groups. They had a therapy animal and their human. Then they had a group that was just a human, and then they had a group where people did a special activity. So basically 3 different groups of people who were getting chemotherapy could either visit with a therapy dog and a person alone, or do an activity to help answer the question, how do we know it's actually the animal that's making a difference? And when they did this over a period of time and were looking at variables for the patients, they found at the end, the group who had interacted with a therapy animal had a significantly higher sense of hope. They said that they felt that they were doing better and that their treatment was working far more than the other 2 groups, and it was had no correlation with how they were actually improving. So to me, the fact that in a scientific world we can get to a variable of hope and link that back to animals is just really impressive. We also have research to talk about how therapy animals help pro-social behavior, or the way that we interact as humans. We know that people tend to interact more when a therapy animal is in the room. Rex, the border collie who you saw in the beginning, was pretty famous in a group therapy settings. I used to be a counselor, and he would come and help me. And some days when he did not come, I thought, I'm never going to get my job done today. They were all much more motivated to engage with one another when Rex was there. We also see that therapy animals can help with social learning. This bullet says for people with autism, and that is true, but we have more and more recent research out there to talk about social learning for all different populations, for young people, for older people who have dementia, where social learning might sometimes be challenged. These therapy animals really help. And it's probably no surprise to you that therapy animals are great for mental health in general. We have research that suggests that therapy animals help with decreasing stress, increasing energy. When people have experienced trauma, therapy animals might be brought in. But one of my favorite things about the intervention is that it's great for people who are already well, and it's great for people with severe mental illness. So we go to college campuses, for example, when people are about to have their final exams. So in general, that is a group of people who are not seeking treatment for any kind of particular issue. They might say at the beginning they're feeling fine, but even after visiting with the therapy animals, they say that they feel better. And the same goes the most severe mental illnesses that a person might have. We've seen therapy animals help. It's also been an intervention that's been studied all across the lifespan, very young children all the way up to very old people, even people in hospice settings. We have a whole group of therapy animals in our program who specialize in going and being with people as they transition in their last days and being with their family. Like I said before, this is an intervention for sickness and health for all different kinds of people. You would be surprised. We have had some research that says, do you have to be an animal lover to benefit from this intervention? And actually, no. There's been some research done in hospitals, and people do not identify as pet lovers and maybe have never even had a pet in their life, and still, after they interacted with the animal, they felt better. So we obviously always ask people that it's up to them. There are people who would prefer not to be with animals, and that's okay, but it's not just the crazy animal people like me who tend to benefit from the intervention. So last few moments here, I did want to talk about our other species, since we started this conversation with it being introduced to llamas. Dogs are by and large the most common therapy animal in our program. Over 90% of our therapy animals are dogs, and we have over 10,000 therapy animal teams all over the world. But we do have other species. We have cats, horses, birds, pigs, rabbits, llamas and alpacas, guinea pigs, and rats. And we have a strong commitment at Pet Partners in getting some of these other species, not just in practice, but in research, because it really is amazing. The different animals have different impacts in the society. So let's look a little bit about that. You can see on this slide, there's been research done on the different effects of different therapy animals. So with llamas, alpacas, and horses, there's been research that talks about how with working with these species in particular, people can see a marked improvement in self-esteem. This is a big, powerful animal that they learn to communicate with. They can have trust building, and there's just a way that people tend to carry themselves differently after they've learned to work with these animals. We also know that they're very intelligent and they can respond to people in really complex ways. There's been research that talks about animals such as prey animals like horses or even smaller prey animals. If a person is seeking some kind of treatment, they've been victimized, they've been preyed upon, bringing a prey animal in to work with them can be really powerful. A mental health therapist can do a lot with that, them relating to one another. Cats do a lot to facilitate social communication. There's been a lot of recent research on cats, in particular for people with autism. We have found that there is sometimes a slight preference that people have to work with an animal like the one they had at home when they were growing up, or maybe they have at home now. So cats are commonly, we commonly get asked if we can bring a cat to a facility. We have a lot of our small furry friends that are very common in schools and classrooms. They can help with social functioning, increase a kid's desire to go to school. That when there's a class pet, we see that kids tend to be more eager to go. And a very cool activity that sometimes people do with these little critters that we can hold is you can feel, their heartbeat. And so we can talk about monitoring stress based on the way that the animal's heart is beating in your hand, and how we can help to make that better by doing things like soothing them, maybe giving them a treat. Birds, wonderful therapy animals, especially when it comes to speech and language and reading, promote verbal interaction. Birds are very, very smart. They tend to do best with us as therapy animals when they've been worked with from a very young age, but there's some great work that they do. So that is a little bit about all of our different species of therapy animals. Just a couple more slides before we go to questions. But again, one of the questions we see a lot this year is, what have you done over the course of the past, I guess it's over a year now that the world has kind of been shut down. I heard that, the zoo is still not open to the public. We've seen this really massive shift in what we do that's been very beneficial, and it's similar to what we're doing now. We coined the term animal-related engagement, but it's taking these conversations about animals, these interactions with animals, into a virtual setting, and it happened kind of on its own. Right when the world started to shut down, we heard from some of our volunteer teams who said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've been visiting this senior living community for years, and I can't just not go there or check on them. So they turned to platforms like Zoom, and they would get their animals up on camera with them, or they would write letters and send pictures of their animals. They would read books together, and message their books about animals. And it took off, and it has been really beneficial. We have a Facebook page where our handlers can post cute pictures of their animals, and that's shared in hospitals all around the world now. So we see this as something that can continue on even when the world hopefully begins to normalize a little bit more soon, that there might not ever be enough therapy animals to meet the need, but if we have people who are really passionate about animals and can go get cute pictures, share them, that there's just some positivity there that's worth continuing to explore. Finally, I just wanted to invite everyone, if you are interested in learning more about Pet Partners, you can go to petpartners.org, find out about becoming a therapy animal team. Even if you don't have an animal who is a good candidate for therapy animal work, we do ask that you consider joining our advocacy program. We have eyes and ears out for any time animals appear in lawmaking issues, any kind of political arena where we need to show up as animal people and make our voices heard. So we make that really easy for people to do. So do check that out and join the Pet Partners family. So I will stop there and see what questions we have.
Well, Taylor, that is fascinating. Thank you so much. And just to quickly add, one of the things Friends of Hyde Park Zoo have continued to do when the zoo is closed is on our social media post photographs of the animals, videos of the animals, because we know, me personally, we know that as you say, all the animals at the zoo can really help people through their difficult times.
Absolutely.
I actually have chickens.
No.
The last 3 years I have had chickens, and I call them my therapy chickens.
Yes.
Particularly the last 2 years. And I noticed you don't have chickens, but I have seen research chickens going into seniors' homes and things. So
yes.
They eat eggs as well, so there's the benefit.
I know.
Anyway, let me see. I guess, yeah, I know. And I won't get into detail, but they give you amazing compost as well for your vegetable garden. Do you have any, is Pet Partners here in Canada, or is it just in the States?
We are, yes. We're in Canada, and we are even in some other places all around the world, and we can grow anywhere there's interest in people becoming evaluators. So if you're interested in getting involved, do check us out.
I know one of our local healthcare centers has people taking trained, handlers go in with, I know a friend who does their dogs. So yeah, I think it's amazing. Anna, do we have any questions in the chat? Let's see if Anna's got anything.
We do.
I see.
I've put a few in.
And
yes.
People who would like to contact Dr. Chastain afterwards.
Yes, perfect. And anyone is welcome to contact me. I'll go ahead and let you know. taylorc@petpartners.org is my email address. So feel free to reach out. I see a couple questions. I know we're limited on time, so I will try to get to them. The training like for household pets to become certified in the program. It's a great question. Really, that's going to depend on the nature of the animal. If your animal is affiliative, likes being out and meeting new people, then that's the most important part. It is kind of funny too, because we find that some of our best therapy animals are actually not the most obedient. They're very resilient, boisterous. So our evaluation that they have to pass does test for basic obedience cues based on the animal. So dogs have to sit down, stay, all of those kinds of typical things. But really the bulk of the test is how they're going to respond to loud noises, to medical equipment. So training is a mix of working on your relationship with the animals so that you can get them to do the behavior that you need, but then also exposing them to kind of new stimuli that they might see in the environment so that they are not startled, or they're just ready to see whatever comes in the therapy animal world. And with the other question for the other types of animals, where do they usually come from? All of the animals in our program are owned by their handlers. So people have their farms, and they also register the animals who are out in their homes. They are their pets. So that makes a big difference. We have a requirement that you have to have known the animal that you're working with for at least 6 months, a year for birds, because we know that it takes a long time to build a relationship with an animal in a way that it's safe for you to go out and advocate for them in this kind of way. Let's see. And then the last question I'll try to answer, I think we have time. What is your education, background, and lifestyle that got you excited and engaged in animal therapy? Great question. So I've always been the kind of person who just collects animals. I say that I'm not a hoarder, but I love animals. I take in rescues. And I also knew I was not fit for the veterinary space because I would be just crying all day in a corner. I'm just not cut out for it. And so I wanted to do something that incorporated animals and humans. And back when I was even in school, the career path didn't exist as far as I could tell. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I thought, I've heard of therapy animals. I think this could become a field. So I just kept putting all my eggs in one basket, hoping if I tailored my education to this kind of niche area that a job would become available, and it did. And now we think this will become a career path for people into the future, especially as we launch our professional association. We're seeing a lot more therapists, educators, medical providers who are specializing in animal-assisted interventions. And sharing the slides, I would be happy to share the slides. So I will send those over after the presentation.
Fantastic. Just thank you so much, Taylor. This has been amazing. Just watching even the pictures of the animals and hearing what they can do, I think it warms our hearts. As I say, we have a lot of interaction with the animals at the zoo. Just watching people feeding and touching the llamas, you see the smile, you see their stress just drain away. Unfortunately, our llamas are not allowed to leave the zoo. So if you want to come and visit them when we're open, that's the only way you can see our llamas, unfortunately. Just to, as everyone know, we will be posting this amazing afternoon on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. And if you did miss our Zooview last 2 weeks ago on the caribou and the reindeer, they are already on the our YouTube channel. And on May 15th is our next Zooview, and that's on capybaras. So we'll be learning a little bit more about Bonnie and Clyde and what they got up to and what they do. So we have a Zooview nearly every 2 weeks for you to participate. We have about 1 minute left, 2 minutes left. I'm going to hand us back to Amy to see if we can finish this Zoom on wonderful, relaxing therapy from our llamas. And Taylor, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And all the best with your wonderful animals.
Thank you.
Okay, Amy, over to you.
Hi, so
And the
here
geese.
I am back at the zoo. You can hear those lovely geese, so I will turn you around. You can see our llamas having a snack. The geese coming to say hi.
So while we finish off here, we're looking at the llamas for everyone. The roof is going on the new llama building right now. We hope to get the llamas into their new log building in June or July. So they'll be moving out of this enclosure, going back to their old enclosure, joining up with the capybaras again. So they'll be back together hopefully in a few months' time. Thank you everyone for joining. We hope to see you on May 15th. And if you miss anything, visit our YouTube channel and send Taylor all your questions. And this has been amazing. Thank you so much everyone for joining us. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend, everyone. And we'll see you in a few weeks. Bye-bye.